Ladies and gentlemen, hi baby, we're live now. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dinner and a Game. Thank you so much for showing up. Oh shit, hang on a second. I need to fix all the massive echo that's happening right now.
What are you doing?
I forgot to shut off all the cameras.
Okay.
Alright. And, that was loud. And we're back. The cameras are off. We have liftoff. We have power. We have sound. And Josh will soon have barbecue. So everything is wonderful in the world. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dinner Conversations, the first launching of our geek gaming culture talk show for the most part. We are going to be doing this mainly based around, in the beginning, based around the idea of talking about different features and facts and situations that tie directly into the role-playing game community and how we basically deal with certain situations. And we're not talking about, everything bad all the time. We're just talking about, how we deal with certain situations that come up. And one of those situations was actually inspired by real-world events. We had a conversation in our Critter chat for Texas Critter page, which, by the way, if you guys haven't joined yet, it's a Texas Critters on Facebook. And it basically, if you're in Texas and you want to know any local events that are happening and dealing with your local critter community or gaming in general, go to Texas Critter page. You can join up there, and every Thursday night we do a live video stream of us sitting around watching Critical Role.
It's so fun.
And we sit around and we talk. We actually mute during the show. We talk. We get on usually about an hour or two before the show starts. Chat about what the episode and everything like that, and then we mute. We come on during break, and we usually either finish crying. which was week before last, or we finish crying, or we squee about what happened, and then we usually have a little bit of a chat afterwards. Kessie usually falls asleep.
Okay.
In very uncomfortable positions.
So unfortunately, I usually have to be up at 5 a.m. the next day.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't.
And then everyone takes turns messaging Josh R until he goes to gets there and makes her go to bed.
I have the best roommate in the world, guys.
One of these times he's gonna leave you there. But anyway.
I know, he will, and it'll be fine.
I thought about it last night, honestly. I thought about just turning off the lights and everything and just letting her.
Oh yeah, Meg did remind me that Meg falls asleep on camera on chat all the time too. So it's like everyone else in the chat takes bets on who's gonna fall asleep first, Meg or Kessie.
That's true.
So
is this better? Meg says my mic is very quiet. I don't know what's going on.
I can hear you fine.
Well, I know.
We seem to be okay. Let me check the facts. Oh yeah, we're running really good. 60 frames per second. Yeah, we seem to be doing okay. So, as I was saying, tonight is the launching of this new talk show. And we're basically here to discuss situations that happen with us at the gaming table or in other ways. And this particular situation comes from an event that happened during a critter chat where a fellow critter asked for some advice on running a game. And first off, number one, above everything else, I'm going to apologize again for how I handled the situation because I was less than polite. But the basic nature of the situation boils down to this. The GM in question wanted to ask what he should do about players who have extensive and massive backstories that they want to bring in and incorporate into the game. And his basic scenario was I'm just much louder. Let me turn down my mic a bit. That should be better. So, and I might be getting echo because the door is open between me and Jessica. So we got the. Oh, that's okay. But he basically said, how do I keep the player happy? Try and integrate their background into the story, but not let it override the story I want to tell as a storyteller. And pretty much I said, look, if you want to tell a story, what you want to do is write a novel. As a GM, we create worlds. I mean, a lot of GMs put a lot of work into the worlds they build. And they basically end up, putting this work into a world that players are going to come into and interact with, and they're going to have their own way of changing that aspects. So, what I said to him was, if you want to tell a story and you want to have control over all aspects of that story, you don't want players. You want to basically take that story and write it down and try and publish it as a novel. And I said, and he got upset. He was like, well, what about all the work I put into creating this world and creating this story? And so that's kind of where I would say we left off, because at that point he was pretty upset and I was being a dick. Not intentionally, I'm just a dick. And
I don't know, you were kind of going off a little bit.
I was going off because, as I told him, I'm an advocate for the player. And as a GM, whenever I build anything for for the players to interact with, it is with the full knowledge and understanding that they're going to take my world and they're going to do whatever they can with it, whatever they want with it. Because I've built this world in order to enable them to interact with it and change it, because that's the nature of a hero's tale. A hero doesn't come into a static world and follow a set path that basically ends up with him getting to a already drawn out conclusion. A hero comes into the world and fundamentally changes it. That's the nature of heroism. And that's the type of story that I hope we all try and tell as GMs, is we try and tell a fundamental story of the hero's journey. I always say my games are basically Greek tragedies with a heck of a lot more aerobic workout, because my motto for running a game is never let them rest. The game starts and the pressure never lets up.
I don't know. In Ebron, we had a spa episode. That was pretty nice.
We literally had a spa day.
You had a spa day.
We had a spa
day. You ever wonder why you had a spa day?
We'll never have a spa day again.
No. You ever wonder why you have a spa day?
You guys do? Heck yeah.
Yeah, Josh's first game. We come in, they give us a lot of money, and they give us massages and good food.
Yeah, everyone suddenly hints at their backstory.
Yeah, you get that quiet moment where everyone's kind of like going introspective and lumping out backstory left and right, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, the walls are burning. But anyway, so what I want to do is I wanted to get everyone else's interpretations of what they consider to be the role of a storyteller in today's modern gaming environment. Because thanks to shows like Critical Role, and everyone sees a lot of this on the internet. People on the internet are constantly talking about something called the Matt Mercer effect. It's a term that I hate. Because Matt is just a really good storyteller who managed to get really lucky and find a platform, and it took off. Okay?
His cats like to be herded, baby.
No, they don't. That's just it. His characters are some of the most chaotic players I have ever met. They throw shit out the window. Matt he's literally said it. I spent, 16 hours building this setting and this diorama for this encounter that you guys completely bypassed and never went near.
Oh, you mean like the love potion?
Yeah, that's just one thing. There are literally hundreds.
Oh, absolutely.
And now Matt says, that's why he's like, that's why he's so in love with the fact that they partner with Dwarven Forge, because now it's all modular. So if they don't use it, he just takes it apart, puts it back in the box. But yes, so the Matt Mercer effect is something that I think is far too heavily emphasized now by GMs, and I can understand why, especially for starting GMs. It is incredibly intimidating to have a professional show like Critical Role out there giving people a preconception of what a game should be. But at the same time, I think that it sets a bar that is, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to do our show, is because I don't think that the bar that Critical Role sets is outside of anything on the story side other than the idea that, other than the concept of having all that badass terrain and all that budget to throw at, minis and everything like that. That is an aside.
I have that budget, though.
Huh?
So
That would be cool.
Josh, what were you saying?
also the fact that literally everyone on that show is a professional voice actor, like with an extensive back catalog. With the exception of Marisha, everyone has been doing voice acting for at least 7 to 10 years prior.
Yeah.
And not just that, but they've been playing together for years as well.
So. Yeah. 2 years before they started the show, but those 2 years also, one thing I do have to put as a caveat on that, those 2 years were spent getting maybe one game in a month. Because of their schedules, they're actors, so they're always going on set. They're always working. Their schedule is incredibly hectic. So they basically were putting out one game a month on maybe two. So,
but they also definitely talked about times where they would play for a lot longer than any of us play for a normal session.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
They'd play
an entire day.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you this: when I was first got into gaming, when I was a teenager and stuff like that, on the weekends we would be at somebody's house and we all crash there, and it would be Saturday all day, and Sunday until people had to start going home. And we'd be playing the same frickin' game. And so it was I remember being like that, but I also remember being 14.
Hashtag land.
Yeah.
I was gonna say my first D&D session was 10 hours long.
Oh, good lord!
And I swear,
I've never played that long. Ooh.
I can run sessions like that because. Think about Kessie. Think about what happened on.
No, I could do it.
No. Think about what happened on Friday, right?
Yeah.
We did 3 hours of role play, and when we stopped, people were just now going, "What time is it? Holy crap!"
Yeah.
True.
You know what I mean?
True.
So we can do long sessions. It's just who's gonna watch 10 hours of gaming.
No.
So yeah.
People like you.
People like me.
Maybe one day if we're doing something for charity, we can do one of those crazy length streams where we all just
24 hours.
Yeah. Take my
24
laptop.
hours.
I'll take my laptop into the bathroom and just turn my camera off.
What's that plopping noise?
See, that's why I have the wireless headset.
Yeah.
So I can do my business when I need to.
I have a wireless headset too. The mic just sucks. So But yeah, so basically, what I'm trying to get to is, what is your experience? What have y'all's experiences been with this situation and concept? I mean, a lot of you are, relatively speaking, new to gaming. So you may have come into this with this being already an established part of your gaming life, where people have, experiences with gaming that are not, not directly related to the table. They've done things like they've watched Critical Role, or they watched what's the other show? My brother, from the guys who do My Brother and Me.
The Adventure Zone.
The Adventure Zone. Those two shows are incredibly popular. They're incredibly well produced. Now, the Adventure Zone is more of a podcast format.
It is a podcast.
Yeah, so they don't have to worry about sets or anything like that. But you look at Critical Role, and you guys. And the thing is, people don't remember, or people who haven't watched season 1 don't remember when Matt was just drawing shit out on a Mylar map.
Right?
You know what I mean? And
that's how that started.
And half the minis were on the table unpainted. So so that was because that was back in the day when they had no budget. It's like us.
Absolutely. Well, I was gonna say I've been very fortunate in the sense that, so whenever I first started, I started with Pathfinder, and I started out as a GM. I bought the book because my friends were talking about it. I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna do this, and it was definitely a learning curve, being kind of throwing myself into something I've never done. I've always been good at bullshitting, so hey, I can tell a story, no problem. But as far as being a player, I've been very fortunate to have DMs and GMs who are like, okay, here is a base setting. We are going to build the world around you. I didn't have a very oppressive GM or DM where it's like, no, you can't do that, because if you do that, then it totally just ruins everything. They're like, you can do that, but it's going to have consequences. So it's always nice to feel the ultimate humanity of it, of just you're playing a game, but you're not playing a linear game. Like your choices will have consequences, and I love it when you do something and then you don't think it's going to come back to bite you in the ass, and all of a sudden, here's big bad evil guy. Like, oh crap, I remember you. I burnt your house down. Sorry about that. Ugh.
Yeah.
So it's very nice. But I will say the Matt Mercer effect or whatever, people can go into games with this expectation of like, this is how it's supposed to be. Like I watched Critical Role, and if it's not living up to this standard, well, then it's just not a good game. And so I definitely feel for the GMs, DMs who have players like that. But ultimately, those players are gonna get smacked with reality, in the sense that nobody except Matt Mercer is Matt Mercer, and nobody except the rest of the Critical Role cast is the rest of the Critical Role cast.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't hold yourself to the standards of the way they hold themselves to their standards, why would you hold your GM to that standard as well?
Yeah, that's a very valid point, because if you're gonna expect me to be Matt Mercer, number one, I'm gonna have to lose a lot of weight, and number two, if you're gonna expect me to be Matt Mercer, I'm gonna expect you to be Taliesin. And that's not realistic. But at the same time, I think Critical Role does set one very high bar that I think has really hit a lot of mechanical GMs hard. And when I say mechanical, I mean GMs who enjoy running a combat-heavy, action-oriented game and don't really know how to run a lot of other stuff, because that's what they've been doing their entire time, or that's what they enjoy about the game. Because what that leads to is these guys who are, I really like establishing my combat and establishing my the orientation of the characters around what actions they're going to take and everything like that. They end up getting in a situation where now these new players come in and they're like, okay, combat was cool. Yeah, cool. We got combat. But now let's go to town and sell our loot. And maybe I'll strike up a conversation with the bartender to try and find more work. And the GM's wants to go, okay, well, the bartender doesn't know. Or the bartender, whatever. And the player's like, no, I want to talk to the bartender. And so that poor GM is like, okay, well, he says that there's no work. And then the player, you can see the player, just doing the whole, oh, okay.
Exactly.
And then they start engaging each other and ignoring the GM.
Mm-hmm. And I totally understand that. It's definitely happened to me a couple times as a GM. Like, I'm like, oh, crap, okay. And then, I'm pretty good about, coming up with stuff on the fly, especially when it comes to, like, names. I have to now have, like, a list of racial names like to the side of like I haven't used it yet, and then I'll like squiggle like, okay, he's now the bartender or something like that. Yeah. One thing I've also learned to come prepared with is a map, because it never fails. They always want a map of the area, or at the very least a map of the world. So usually I'll do like map of the world, map of the country, map of the town, and be like, they don't need a map. They live here. They just, go down here, go past this, whatever.
Yeah.
Unless it's like a major like capital or something like that, and even then I'm just like,
Those are the hardest maps to do. Countryside maps are freaking easy, but mapping a city is difficult. Huh?
Don't you do that for a living?
No, I really don't. I map networks. I don't map cities.
Yeah, we need more subscribers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What the hell? Wait, no.
Hey.
Oh, next subscriber goal.
Next subscriber goal: make Ray make maps because he already does it for a living. No.
All the maps.
Yeah, but the situations also what that also brought across to me is I did not really get a chance to ask how long he had been running, but I suspect it wasn't very long, and he was very passionate about the world he had created. And what I was trying to get across was, and what I failed to get across because I was just too harsh, was the fact that you love the world you created. You are passionate about it. I can understand that, and I can feel that by the way you're, describing it and by the way you're trying to protect it. I was like, but you can't protect a world that's going to have other people in it. I was like, that's something you're going to have to surrender to the player, because the player is going to come in and there's that whole statement of no plan ever survives the first encounter with the enemy. No world survives a PC. The PCs are literally there to create world-changing events, even if the GM didn't intend it. Because when you're a PC, even first levels, whatever, you're one step away from God. Because you're the focus of this story. Even if the GM has a plot line laid out and he knows where everything wants to go, it doesn't matter. Because you're there and you're the X factor that the GM cannot control. And GMs who attempt to rein this in and take that control from the players are the reason that I went off.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's we're not playing this because we want to play Skyrim, but with pen and paper. We want to be able to. I want to be able to just go up to a random person, talk to them, and
kill them and take their stuff.
Well, you can do that in Skyrim, but you can't.
I know.
You can't seduce the blacksmith, but in D&D,
Hey.
I have actually had
Black Smasher hot.
I've actually been kind of in that position that that this guy has found himself in when I started my now current Monday night game. At the time, I was basically like doing like a fill-in for our GM who had to go to work, and his schedule changed, and it turned into this like me running a one shot that lasted 6 months. And in that time, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna write a campaign and do like a real campaign. And like, yeah, I'd say at the beginning, for probably the first couple of levels, I was very much in the mindset of, and like, I don't have my original notes anymore, unfortunately, because they were lost in the fire. But if you were to look at the way that my notes look now versus the way that my notes looked originally when I was writing the campaign, I would try to write for like option A, B, or C. When that's not a thing that happens in you can try to anticipate your players. Like if you know your players well enough, you played with them for a long enough time, you know their play style, you know their characters. You can try to anticipate when writing an arc, writing whatever. But like I was straight up writing like this will happen, and then if they choose to do this about it, or if they choose to do this about it, or if they choose to do this about it, here are these 3 different branching paths. And I found myself not quite so subtly or gently kind of railroading them into one of those paths. I would hint like, hey, maybe you want to do this, or this is also an option, or there is a third option. And like, so it was pretty railroad heavy. And I think what finally broke me of that was my Dwarven City. I think that's I reference that all the time because it was the craziest shit to happen in my campaign. Well, maybe not the craziest. It was the craziest low level. It was the craziest low level shit to happen in my campaign. And I had to throw out so much stuff that I had written out and that I had worked on because they completely bypassed 100% of it. Like I had this whole thing, like they were going to investigate the potential sighting of this artifact, and when they got there, like the city was in a state of like political unrest. There was like kind of a class war happening between the upper echelon and the lower echelon, and like it ended in a civil war that was started because they lit a house on fire.
We lit the city literally on fire.
On accident.
It was an accident. It was completely an accident.
They weren't they weren't doing the murder hobo thing.
But it was also magical fire that couldn't just like be put out normally.
Yeah, they started a fire and it spread and it got out of hand and they ran away from it because of course they would. Like, players aren't going to stay and clean up their mess. They're going to be like, onward to the next adventure. And
get the hell out of here.
And so in that happening, I had to, like, in that moment, I realized that I had 2 choices. I could either be salty that they completely bypassed this whole layer of political intrigue that I wanted to run them through, and this whole fucking, like, who's really the bad guy, who's behind the mask, who's the, they completely bypassed all that and just started the Civil War, and I had 2 choices. I was like, I can either be salty about it, or I can adjust accordingly on the fly and move on. And still, like, I found in that, like, I think the biggest thing I took away from that was, like, if you want a particular scene or a particular thing to happen, then you make it happen. Other than that, like if it's going to just be something that is driving your players forward, or if it is something that you think is really cool that your players are going to really enjoy and interact with, and it'll spur more roleplay for players and more like input into like your world lore or whatever, then make it happen. You just make it happen. Like it's you are literally in control of like the world and what is happening in it. They are the thing for you to bounce off of as your players. So like if you want to, like I really, really want this scene to happen, then all you do is you write the parameters of this particular scene. You don't put any particulars on how to get to it. And you just put it in where it feels right. It's just all drag and drop. Everything is drag and drop for running a narrative, like an overarching narrative.
I agree.
Because when your players are wanting to tell their own stories, that should be that's their priority, and it should be your priority to make sure that everyone's having fun. But there is some truth to the old adage that that like if mama ain't happy, nobody happy. If the DM's not having fun, if the DM is not enjoying themselves, the players absolutely will not be.
Yeah, that was the point I was going to bring up. There is a need to strike that balance. If you're a GM and the only way you can feel happy is by telling a story that you have a linear plot that is going to force the player's hands left and right, you need to be really upfront with your group and let them know what type of story you want to run, and let them know and make sure that they're okay with it, because you can't just expect people to accept that situation as normal, especially now more than ever.
And the alternative is for you, if you really like, because I fall into that category where I want to write a story. I'm actually like it's a very slow and I haven't made much progress towards it in the last year, but like I'm trying to novelize the campaign setting and campaign world of my first campaign, because I think a lot of really cool stuff happened in there, and I think I could put it into a good like story form, because it kind of helped write itself, because I let the players eventually like tell their own stories. But I want to get that fulfillment out of there too, of like, I created this, isn't it cool? Don't you guys think I'm cool? Look at this cool thing.
Look at this cool thing I made.
I made it for you. It's cool. It's always super fulfilling to me to have my players reference, like in game or off the table, some lore from my world, because I'm like, whoa, that's just some dumb bullshit I made it. What do you remember it? Do you remember it? Am I cool?
You're so cool.
So what I found helps for me personally to still feel, because I know that me and this guy aren't the only people. We're not the only two DMs who feel this way. Like, I still want to be able to tell a story, but I want to run a fun game. I found what helps for me personally is to, instead of make that story an active story, I either make it a story that is happening alongside or in the background of the character's story. To use, everybody loves to use Critical Role as an example, but in campaign 2, it starts off, spoilers, and there is a war in the background. And like, that's just a thing that's happening. It doesn't directly affect the players. It doesn't directly affect any of them. It doesn't even really come into play within the first, at least 5-10 episodes. But there's a war. There's a war on. Like, that's a thing. That's a thing that's happening, and it's affecting the world. So tell your story in the background or put it in as lore, because what I ended up doing for my world is I had all these ideas for this and this and this and this, and so if you were to ask me like what happened in Perennia like in 21 BU, then I would be able to tell you exactly what happened then. Or if you ask me what happened pre-tear, I would be able to tell you what happened before the Great Tear happened, and I'd be able to tell you about the history of the gods and all that. And like that's just because I wrote that story. So if the players want to ask about it, they'll ask about it. And if they're not asking about it, and you still just got to get it out of you, then like maybe they meet a historian, and the historian's just like, let me tell you about the history of this world.
exposition.
Yeah, and when they're like, shut up, nerd, you're like, no, it's important to this dungeon that you're going into that only appears once every 10 years because of the magic of...
Yep, because that didn't actually happen to us.
And also, it's great whenever you can just tie it in with like, roll a history check, and then you can be like, then they're like, oh, hey, I did this, so I know this. Nobody else passed this history check, but I know this.
No one else knows this really cool information that like may or may not actually affect what we're doing right now, but I know it. There are ways to shoehorn that aren't just straight up taking agency away from the player.
Exactly. One thing that I really like to do is I'll take people from their backstory and attach plot hooks to them. So they're gonna interact with these people, and so why not just, hey, you go to your mom, but now your mom's been kidnapped, or
It turns out Mom was a lich the whole time.
And that's something that I love to hear about what GM is doing, because one of the things that I told him, and one of the, I guess it's one of the things that I kind of got through, even though he was upset with me, was the fact that I was like, look, if they're going to the trouble of making up all this story, they care about their characters as much as you care about the world you've made. If you disrespect them by disregarding the work and the love they've put into that, how are they going to respect what you've done? Right. And I was like, but the biggest sign of respect you can give any player is to take that which they've spent so much creating and then weave that into your world. Tie a backstory they have into a villain that you've created or a situation that you want to happen. Make what they've given you an integral part of what you're going to push moving forward. And when you do that, they're going to sit there and start realizing that you have listened to what they told you, and you have chosen to bring that in, and it's going to draw them so much deeper into the story that they're going to be they'll buy you presents. I can't guarantee that, but they'll basically become avid followers of you as a GM. They will want to be in your games.
Absolutely, because like as soon as you mention that their character's mother is kidnapped or something like, it just got personal. Now they have a stake in it, and now it makes them feel like, this story is about me. Like take a step back, guys. This is about me. This is me time. This is my personal arc, or something like that. And so like I think making your players feel special and included in your story is one of the big keys to any great game.
Because we haven't had the dads be the villain like 3 times or anything like that.
I have had a complicated relationship with my father.
If you all couldn't tell, Kessie is part of. Kessie is
so great in our stories. Like it's worked.
Kessie is one of Josh's players. So if you guys couldn't tell,
have been since the beginning.
Yep.
So
since the jump.
Yep.
Like the first time I ever ran a table, you were at it.
Yep. And so that has been like they've got a very strong relationship as GM and player because they've been together forever since like Josh said, first table. And so the big thing about that is, Kessie, you've seen Josh change and grow as a GM.
Yeah, and I was gonna say that because when I first started playing, like that was me beginning to play as well. So as a player, I'd never done it before. And so I honestly probably never even realized I was being railroaded into things because I was just like, yeah, tell me what to do, please tell me. Like
you tell me to roll dice, and I roll it.
Like please tell me where I should go and what I should do because I have no clue what I'm doing. But yeah, I mean, I can definitely see where we did start to make those changes in our story, and nowadays, it's probably 1000% different than the way it was when we first began. We do some crazy things.
The game I currently run, I actually have kind of struggled with the last month or so, just feeling like it's aimless and it's going nowhere. There's no direction and feeling like I'm lacking as a DM. But it's because the players can't. I also realize it's because my players can't just pick a fucking thread.
Yeah, we can't focus. We're having a hard time.
I keep throwing them threads, and they're like, "Ooh!" And then another one pops up, and they're like, "Oh, that one too."
This.
Or they'll get halfway through one, and then be like, "This fucking sucks," and we're leaving. And,
it does. Also, does it help that literally two of us completely forgot what our original storylines were of where we need to be and what we need to be doing, me being one of them.
Yeah, you were running away from an area that you're back into.
Yeah, I was running away from an area, and immediately somebody was like, "Hey, let's go here," and I was like, "Yeah, I'll go, sure."
I know that area super well, actually. It's in my backstory.
And one of the characters was supposed to be in the city that we were starting for a very specific reason. And whenever we were like, "Hey, we're gonna leave and go do this," he was just like, "Yeah, let's go." Oh wait, there was something I was supposed to do here. It was just, I mean, yeah, it's been a little chaotic, but it's been
okay. So there's someone
amazing. Also,
there's someone in chat.
Scott is the other player that we're talking about, and he's in chat right now.
So yeah, he said rest in peace, Comorum. Sorry, Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm assuming
that was the city that we burned to the ground.
Oh, gotcha.
That was the city, and then he he says he's not a good player. He is a good player. It's just but we all in that group struggle very much with
with focus.
Yeah, focus. I think that's our biggest struggle. Yeah.
So it's I think. That is it comes with the territory of everyone wants to tell a story with their characters just as much as the DM wants to tell a story with the world or with a particular big bad or just whatever. Everybody wants to tell this story that they have in their mind about how this character acts because of this, or whether they're chasing vengeance or just finding themselves, or they're just literally they're definitely players who will just make a character who is I'm just an adventurer because I fucking adventure, man. That's what I do.
Right.
Baby's gotta wander.
Exactly. Well, I think a funny reoccurring theme, usually with a lot of characters, is a tragic backstory or amnesia. I don't know if I've ever GM'd for somebody who has a great relationship with their parents in game. But a joke that I made to a friend is that heroes or what was it? Orphans make good heroes. There's I'm not gonna say there's no character that has a great relationship with their parents, but you got Batman, you got Spider-Man. I think technically, I'm not sure if Superman really counts because his adopted parents were pretty cool, but
but he knew he was adopted. That's he pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Superman's a bad example because I'm gonna go out and probably make a few enemies by saying this, but Superman is not a well-rounded or complex character to begin with.
To begin with, yes.
So he is not a great example to draw from when you're talking about narrative.
The funniest thing about Superman is he wasn't a really heavy character like that until he encountered things that were outside of his focus. Because, he's a super strong, super huge character, super powerful character, invulnerable, whatever. But, the first time he encountered magic, because the DC Universe has a lot of magic users. And the first time he encountered magic, he was thrown. I mean, it was in the first 10 or 15 years of the comic being published, but suddenly he had things that he had no way to struggle against because they weren't really real. And he was made to be helpless. He was hypnotized by Enchantress. All this other stuff happened, and he was made into a bad guy for a bit. And then that's when they actually started expanding on Superman and taking him outside the Boy Scout role, was because he was basically made to do things against his will. And that's a lot of the motivation with player character backgrounds, is they're made to make choice. They make their characters having to be forced to make choices in their history that is against the will and nature of the character. And so they're seeking either redemption or retribution or something moving forward. And that's where a lot of the key points as a GM going over a character's background, that's where you find those hooks that you can then tie back into your meta plots. And that's the biggest issue for me and that's what I always look for, because in my games, and I think I've covered this before, but in my games, I require some things from my players. Some of them are kind of, they're not really necessary. I ask you guys I have a 20 questions little document that I put out. And that 20 questions is to be answered, basically answered about the character. I don't require it to be answered as the character. I would actually prefer you answer it as the player being asked these questions about the character. And then I have another thing that I ask for is a written history of some sorts of the character. I just call it a written backstory. It doesn't have to be a frickin' novel, but I want to have, an idea of where you came from and how you got to how your character got to where they are now. And because of that, I get a lot of people who have been they agree to play and everything like that, and they still, we'll be 4 or 5 games in, and they still haven't done that written backstory. And I don't push that for one very important reason. A lot of people do show up to games. I think Josh H. hit it on this a little while ago, and they make a character mechanically, but they don't have a strong background. And so they need time to inhabit that character a little bit and feel out who that character actually is and create that type of backstory. So I like to give people some time to do that too.
Absolutely. I think you definitely hit the nail on the head with that. And that is why I ultimately, and this may or may not be a hot take. I know, Ray, we've talked about this before, but I really, really do not like alignment. I think alignment is it's a cop out. But and like kind of us talking about this is maybe kind of rethink that just a little bit, in the sense that when they're playing their character, and they don't have the whole background thought out yet fully, I think alignment gives them a little bit of way to sway, but ultimately, when it comes down to it, you're going to play your character. You're going to play who your character is, not your alignment.
Right.
And so when people are just like, I do this because I'm chaotic neutral. No, you.
It's quite the opposite, in fact.
Exactly. Like, no, you just you do it because you didn't think out or you didn't feel out the consequences, or you just don't care about the consequences. That's why you do it. It's not because your alignment is chaotic neutral. It's just because you want to do what you want to do.
Because you're a dick.
Yeah. I was trying to refrain from saying chaotic asshole, but we all.
I know that alignment in and of itself could be a completely different show that we could go on and talk about. Just because the internet has been doing it, and tables, individual tables, have been doing it for almost as long as the game has been around. But one thing that I have for specifically for as a DM to player relationship, I've had a lot of new players come through my tables, people who have never had D&D in front of them in any form except for cultural osmosis. Whether that's just oh, that's that super nerdy thing, right? Or it's oh, the thing from Stranger Things, or whatever it is. They don't have a prior knowledge that comes with being super nerdy in middle school, high school, or whatever. One thing I basically would say is that you look at alignment as a way to help you build a character as a role playing device. It's something that you should have in mind, but it's not something, especially now in 5e, that there isn't actual mechanics for it. It's not something that's ever going to really come up in the game. No one's gonna people don't walk around in the game. You're not you see a blacksmith and he is hard at work, and from the steel gaze that he gives you as he looks up from the anvil, you can tell he's lawful. No one does that. No one walks around in character I am chaotic good, here to do crazy things, but for the good of all. To
take it to a place where it's more on the, I guess, intellectual side of it, but alignment is the equivalent to the dependency that psychology ended up getting with young archetypes during the 50s, 60s, and 70s. I mean, Jung came up with these archetypes.
Shadow.
Yeah. Jung came up with these archetypes, and psychologists grasped onto them because it was a really easy way to try and categorize people and then use those categorizations to find diagnoses. But the problem is, as with any set fixed system of trying to categorize someone, there were far too many variables that would have someone flow through 5 or 6 archetypes, and that not even be the core of their personality. That's just how they felt that week. So that was something that was because everyone's always looking for the easy definition, and I think that comes down a lot to GMs who are still resistant to story-based gaming. They are looking for the easy way out. A lot of people who, because there's a lot of people who still like they want archetypes, right? They want alignment and stuff like that because it's easy, it's simple. Like, okay, well, this is a little bit of a different topic, and I'm saving this for another show. But well, the reason is the nature of the changes to Dungeons and Dragons that have recently been pushed forward with like the gender situation where they've included transgender characters, they've included gender fluid characters, they made elves gender fluid completely. Like an elf could be male, female, completely androgynous, whatever, because they have that in their species. So it basically came down to the idea of what is the idea of, what is the fundamental principle of an RPG. It's to extend beyond the self and experiment with things that are not familiar to you. And so there's a lot of people who are out there who are terrified of things that are not familiar to them. And when D&D wholly embraced this as a company and said, we're going to give people who need it this representation, there were a lot of people who were up in arms because it took something that they were familiar with and they upended it and made it something that was unfamiliar and therefore threatening. Because before, they had their set features. Drow were evil. Why would Drow not be evil? They worship Lolth, and they're slavers, and blah 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 blah. By the way, spoilers. If anyone didn't know that, spoilers. Oh man, that was an asshole thing to say. Sorry. But yeah, so there's the necessary things of evil races. People got so pissed off when they said they were making the changes to take away evil races, and that races themselves weren't evil. There were going to be situations like the orcs were prone to following warlords because that's their culture is based off of a might ranks right policy, but not all orcs. Mm-hmm. And oh my god, it's been such a nightmare watching that conversation happen online.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, it basically bleeds down to there are people who don't want to see change because this is something they grew up with. I mean, I'm the oldest person in our group. I turn 50 next year. I've been playing since I was 10. So, I've been playing for 40 years. And good God, that's a long time. And
that's almost half a century.
Yeah. What happened, Cassie?
Nothing. No.
Okay.
Nothing. I wasn't. No.
He said half a century, and she gasped. And all I could think to do is just go old.
It's okay. I will die, and you will feel bad for having called me old.
No, don't say things like that.
Logan's Run.
Logan's Run. Oh, I'm way past Logan's Run, baby.
Yeah, you and me fucking both, dude.
But yeah, that whole idea of I can't understand it in a way because my entire life with gaming has been a series of changes and adaptations as I have grown as a GM and grown as a player and expanded what I understand gaming to be. And it makes me freak out when I think that there are people who have been gaming as long as I have, or longer, and they are still those static individuals they were when they started. It boggles the mind. So,
well, I mean, not to like derail the talking point that we initially started with, but like in that particular case, I feel like it proves just how few of us have actually read the DMG, because there's like a whole portion of it that's like, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it says essentially like, hey, by the way, all these rules and stuff, they're just suggestions. So like,
Guys,
there's only one rule. Do whatever the fuck you want and have fun.
Hey.
Like,
Is that
if you're the
one
GM,
rule
if you're
altogether?
if you're the GM, like fucking just do whatever. Like, it's your fucking world.
Yep.
But also, like asterisks, and then at the bottom of the page, no one likes a tyrant.
No one likes a tyrant.
Like,
And you know where that original statement comes from?
no one likes a tyrant.
No. These are just suggestions. Do what you want. Do you know where that statement actually comes from? It's actually a quote.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
No. No. It comes from Gary Gygax himself. That was when he was developing
and the law of the land shall be do as thou will.
Yeah, but no. That's where Gary Gygax got it from. But the whole idea that these rules are merely suggestions, and you should try and play a game that lets everyone have fun. That was something that Gary actually said about the concept of the game that they developed when he and Arn Arnson, when they were developing D&D. The main focus was, you guys, these are the rules we made because we found them convenient and they are good for us mechanically. But you guys, do what you want to do.
Whatever.
Have a good time. This is what we have given you to try and do that. But if it doesn't work, change it. Because it's your game. We just made this to help you have a good time. So, and it's kind of weird because if anyone's ever heard about Gary's running style, he was a railroady motherfucker.
Back when DMs hated their players.
Yes. Back when adversarial was the rule of the land.
Yeah. I think that, that with that point, it does kind of circle back to the original talking point that, like, if you're coming to the table, if you're coming to host the game, not necessarily like it's at your house, but if you're the GM, you are the whole world and everything in it. You are hosting this game. There is no game without you. But there is also no game without your players. Because otherwise it's just you talking to yourself, saying a bunch of weird stuff in different voices and sometimes rolling dice. Like, it's all...
Best game ever!
and that's kind of a little crazy. We've all done it. But it's not something that it's not something that's fun.
No.
If you're actually trying to have a good time, like, it's a game to have with your friends and to have all of these experiences with your friends. And like, if your friends all want to play a very combat heavy game and tactical game, and you want to run a very story-driven world exploration type game, then like, that's what Session Zero is for, man. Like, that's exactly what Session Zero is for. Is for you guys to sit down and say, I want this, what do you want? And let's try to meet each other in the middle,
Yep.
Oh man, Session Zeros are a godsend.
Like,
I remember
it's an
when I used to
necessity.
Absolutely. I remember when I used to play without Session Zeros, and it was like the first session was, basically just really figuring everything out, stuff like that. But with Session Zeros, it takes all that stress off of you. It's like, okay, don't intend on playing. We're not going to play today. We're going to character build. We're going to work out the kinks of who we are. We're going to set our expectations. What kinds of players are we? And like, it's just one of those things is like, I look back, I'm like, why did I never do these? These are amazing. It
And
takes
there's
so much stress off of you.
And in the industry itself, there has been an incredible change from the RPGs that basically make it to where almost a lot of the indie games now are including session zeros as part of the character building process. Like Monster of the Week is a great example because as part of your character building, you literally create connections. Yes, and create connections that are built onto the character sheet. You create connections to other characters. So, Alex, you have been very quiet.
It's because he's muted.
Because he's muted.
he's been talking this whole time. He just he's muted.
Yeah.
So have you really, Alex? So what about you? What are your experiences? Huh?
Me?
Yes.
Yes.
I left my notes in the other room, but
Do you have to have your
spotlight?
I guess the one thing I wanted to say was in my position, I've run into so many people that didn't have a backstory.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like you're looking at it wrong, and you should be thankful, in my opinion, that they even put forth the effort to make a backstory. Because that typically leads to them having made better characters. They know what their personality is going to be like, or at least it helps them make that. That way you don't have this really awkward first couple of games with them trying to figure out who they are.
Mm-hmm.
They could have done that beforehand easily, and everyone's just playing a random chuckle fuck who's there to
Kill
I
shit.
don't know
Get
why I'm
money.
here.
Yeah.
All I know is I must kill.
Yeah, and you're gonna you get that like I said, you get that a lot with starting players, especially players who are like jumped onto this whole idea of I'm gonna play D&D, and you come back on and you're like, I don't know what D&D is, so I'm going to come up and I'm going to sit down at the table with these other people and I'm going to do what they tell me to make a character to start playing, and then the GM's going to say one phrase and I'm going to lose my fucking mind. So GM looks at you and goes, what do you want to do? And the new player looks at the GM and goes, well, what can I do? And the GM says, anything. And the players lose their shit. They start randomly killing people.
I stab the first person.
Yeah.
I run up to the closest person and I stab him.
I grab the barmaid's boobie.
Yeah.
Okay, she screams.
I shit on the coats.
Yeah.
I shit on all the coats.
Yeah.
See, and that's why I always.
always.
And that's why I never. I try to avoid that now. Is I don't say you could do anything. I say, what would your character do?
But a lot of the new players don't know what the fuck a character is, and they've created no personality for them. They're sitting
And
down.
That's why Session Zeros.
Well, no, that's
But I
okay.
mean,
Sorry.
even with session zeros, because like I've struggled with that definitely as a player. Like I have struggled with coming up with how does my character really feel about literally anything. Like who is this person that I'm creating? Like what am I doing? Like what
Does my character
what
like
do?
Cheetos?
What do? Like so I understand that struggle completely, and I'm lucky enough that for the most part, I mean I've played at other tables before too, but not as extensively with other than with Josh, but so I've been lucky enough that with Josh I do have a good rapport, and I'm able to sit down and figure out stories and figure out like that all of those complicated things that that are a little bit more difficult for me to come up with on my own sometimes. But yeah, I mean, and session zeros help a lot with that, but still sometimes it's like even after a session zero you're like, okay, but what do I do now?
Well, and that's why I ask you in particular. I have
Because
asked
you know how
Calling
I
her
work.
out.
Because you know how my brain works.
I'm not trying to like sit here and like throw you under a bus or anything, but like
No.
I have asked you in particular questions that like just straight up don't matter.
Yeah.
I've been like, just answer the question. There's no wrong answer, and it's just to get you to start like thinking about like, well, if this is true about my character, then maybe this is this is also true. This is also this and this. Like when we were going through and building your. We were essentially like building your backstory to its fullest when I was like, hey, guess what? I'm going to focus on you.
Oh, yeah.
For this arc coming up. Spoilers. It's going to be like very focused on you for this because we're going back to your hometown.
Yeah. And that was hard for me because like that literally like you sprung that on me so quick because you asked questions first. You were asking me certain things about my character that I had never even thought about. Things about like my family and things like because when I built that character, I didn't think about any of that. I didn't come up with any of it. So we literally had to sit down, and it's literally in the middle of the campaign. We're sitting down and figuring out all this history stuff about my own family.
But that kind of played well with the fact that like you had already been playing this character for so long that like
it gave me time to think about those kinds of things.
At this point, like the details of like how many brothers or sisters do you have, or like how far apart in age are you? Are you the oldest? Are you the youngest? Are you those kinds of stuff? That doesn't like that affects like your real world psychology, but it doesn't affect your characters who's already like established.
And we had like I had such a basic outline of what her backstory was and why she was where she was and doing what she was doing, and you definitely incorporated that into the story really great.
Oh yeah, I turned all that shit right up to 11.
Yep.
Yeah, because I had like a certain idea, and he is like, okay. So she's actually the princess of her. I'm like, wait, what? that wasn't part of the plan.
You
that
told
was
me
not.
that you told me you were a noble and that you had renounced your noble title and like gone off to be a paladin and all this stuff. You completely renounced your nobility.
Yep, I had nothing to do with my family.
And I was like, okay, well, what
His dad was an asshole.
Yeah, you're like my dad was an asshole, so I left the family.
Yep.
And I asked you like, okay, what was your like how high up, like what was your rank, like what was your family like in the social hierarchy,
and I was thinking like, oh no, he's just like some noble in a certain area, like he's not like
I don't know, I guess like no, like you can pick that, and I was like, all right, cool. Princess and heir to the throne
of an entire nation. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, that's not what I meant. And you're like, no, but that's what's happening now. And I will never ever forget the reveal of that at the table because it was so perfect. Because it was like my brother
escort and
and my brother showed up and like was just like, hey, you need to come home.
Yeah, and all of the guards who were there were like, Your Highness, Your Highness.
Yeah.
Your Highness.
And I'm like, I'm not coming home. Like, no, you can't convince me to come home. Oh, our childhood nanny is dying. Okay, fine, I guess I'm gonna come home.
The woman who actually raised you.
Dying, she's asking.
Yeah, exactly.
Her mind is going, and most days she asks for you.
And everybody's like, wait, what's going on? And it's like, yeah, so
we're gonna take a trip.
I'm kind of a princess, guy. And literally everybody kind of like lost their like that was a pretty great reveal. That was like really one of the best parts now. Yeah, and then of course Scott said in the chat too, and now she's a god.
Yeah,
and now she's a god in the pantheon.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's still like the best thing ever. Sorry, we got off on a tangent about our story. But
no. But that's the whole point. This ties right back into what we're talking about.
making the story together.
Blending the story of your character's background into the actual world itself in order to take that world and build it based on what the players bring to the table. And Alex, I know exactly what you're talking about with characters coming to the table with no background. Josh and I ran Adventures League or other types of organized play for a while. And the one thing you can count on in Adventures League is that new players show up and they're like, I've never done this before, ever. I just wanted to come out and try it. And you get to go, cool, sit down, we'll make you a character real quick. You just give me, and I always say the same thing. You're a fan of fantasy.
Who in the Fellowship of the Ring are you going to be?
Yes, I always think that
which member of the Fellowship are you?
And so that's how you pick their class. It's that freaking simple, And so you go through and you get that, and they start getting excited the moment you start bringing that shit up, because that's why they're there. I've only had, in the 5.5 years I ran Adventures League, I only had 2 people that I can distinctly remember that were brand new players, showed up to play for the first time, and told me, I've actually never watched Lord of the Rings, or I've never watched, any type of fantasy movie, or read any type of fantasy novel. And both those 2 people were there because they were with other people who had talked them into going, and it was those other people's first time as well, but they were the ones who were like deeply versed in fantasy and wanted to try out gaming. These other people were just like tag-alongs. And it was kind of like, those are really hard. Because I was like, do you play video games? And one of them was really like, no, don't play any video games. I was like, so you're just here to show moral support? It's like, yeah, but I figure I can play. It's a game, right?
I just sit in a dark room and wait for the next day to come. That's
I know. I was like, okay. That was difficult. Yeah.
What do you read?
Like that would weird me out. Like, what, you don't read, you don't play video game, you don't you don't watch movies. Like,
what do you do?
You have to have something.
It turned out he was a Marvel fan, and he did read comic books.
Okay.
There also are players out there, and shout out to Deadeyes, who want to do nothing but just come in and like roll dice, and that's it. They're just happy to be at a table. And I have not so nicely nicknamed a guy who would play with us at Adventures League Deadeyes, because this guy would come in. I didn't know his name. I still don't know his name. There's no reason for me to learn his name, because I'll never interact with this guy anywhere else ever again. Yeah. But this guy would come in, and he would sit down at my table, and he would just play this very well statted, not like pretty much min-maxed character who was mathematically super good at chopping off heads. And this guy would just sit there and stare at me while I'm running this game. I'm trying to weave as much narrative into Adventure League as possible, which is a nightmare because it's so linear and so railroaded, but I'm trying to make it feel like more of a story-driven thing, where it'll affect the characters personally, and not just let's sit down for 4 hours, roll dice, and then you get gold at the end. Because that's not fun for me as a DM. But this guy would sit here, and he would just stare at me, and no matter how much I engaged him, no matter what I said to him, no matter how much I tried to tie in, I even tried to tie in stuff like, you're a dwarf, and this other dwarf is like, hello, fellow dwarf, isn't it great being dwarfy together? And he was just like, yeah.
It's cool.
I like having a beard. And it was very deadpan, very but when it came time for combat, this dude was fucking just on point. Like,
He knew
I
his
roll this
mechanics.
to attack, I do this to attack, this much damage. Boom! I kill this guy, cut his head off. I fucking hit him with. I gut him. I do that. You know. Yeah. He wasn't super descriptive about his attacks either. He was just like, I'm gonna go and cut off his head. I roll this. Boom. I was like, okay, cool. The mechanics done. And he was very quick. He was very efficient. He was actually a fucking dream for not slowing down combat.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't get an engagement out of him. I couldn't get him to, like, on a personal level, give me anything from him or his character. But at the end of every session, he'd be like, man, great session, had a lot of fun, like, can't wait to do it again next week. I always love playing at your tables. You're a great DM. You did it. He would come up and he would, like, sing all these praises to me, and I'm like, dude, like, I have to tell you, it doesn't feel that way when you're just, like, staring at me. But, like, that's the thing, is that, like, I learned from Adventure League, from doing pickup games, that there are some players who are just going to be happy to be at a table rolling dice, and that's it. Mm-hmm. That's all they need. That's all they want. They don't need to be a part of a bigger story. They don't need to be a part of this grand plot. They don't need to be a character that changes the world, other than the number of people that still have heads attached to their shoulders. like that, you know.
Hey, that's a significant way to change the world. Depopulating
and honestly, like, I thought I was gonna be kind of like one of those players. Like, I'm just here to play. Like, I'm just here to have a good time. Like, I'm not necessarily here to get all involved. But man, as soon as that happened,
that out of you real quick. I was
like, yeah, you did.
I'm gonna make you cry 19 times in 3 months.
19 times in 3 months.
Oh, speaking of, I'm pretty sure Kessie's gonna cry on this.
Oh, no.
Yes. We have a special event, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh God.
Kessie received a present today, and she was requested to open it on stream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she has to cry in front of everybody.
It's okay. It's okay. Her screen is still frozen on mine. So it'll be.
Josh
great.
is like, why is she sniffling? She
Josh
looks so
is
happy.
not even gonna get to see me actually cry, physically.
It's
cry.
okay.
Cool.
That's why you're doing it on stream, so it can be recorded.
If I've seen it once, I've seen it at least 1,000,000 times.
Oh yeah, no, you've probably seen me cry more often than a lot of people in my life.
Oh, and to address something that someone said in chat, yeah, too many swords, yes. Different parties for different folks. I think that's another thing that we have to address is when you're looking for a group, you need to make sure that the group is of like-minded people who are looking for the same things in a game. And
that's extremely important.
So that's also where session zeros are very important. Yeah. But that all being said,
I just want to know who Too Many Swords is, because they actually knew the name of my character earlier too, and that she was Dragonborn, the one that I was talking about. So I'm like, obviously, it's
was that Too Many Swords, or was that Scott?
Yeah, no, it was Too Many Swords who put that, and so I just don't know who that is though.
They're saying open the present.
Whatever. And I realized I didn't bring anything to like actually like open it. So
you do talk about her a lot. So like
yeah, well, because she was cool. She's the coolest character I've ever played, probably. So you know.
I don't know.
Right.
I like Bree a lot.
I liked Bree too, but I don't know.
My favorite character was one of my favorite characters was the first character. I'm stalling to give Kessie time to get the present open. The first character I ever played was a halfling named Amos. And he was a halfling, and this was back in 2nd ed, so he was multi-class halfling fighter, and rogue fighter, I should say. And it was just freaking, that game was so off the rails and crazy. I mean, I was 12 or 13 when we started playing it, and that was just nuts. It was just, and it just always stuck out in my head, and it was just an incredibly chaotic and crazy period of time because, you know, we were all little kids. I think the oldest person in that group was like 16 when we started, and it was a bunch of little kids who were basically doing their best to throw as much chaos into the world as possible. So, and that character will always live in my memory just because of how much.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
boy.
I know who it is now. They texted me.
Oh, okay, gotcha. We don't get to know.
I don't know. I don't know if she's okay with me saying out loud who it is.
Gotcha. Give me 1 second before you reveal, Kessie. I gotta let a dog out back.
Rhymes with. That's not their name.
No. But I don't want
name-
to do that. I don't want to out somebody on the internet
Their
that doesn't
name,
want to be
their
outed.
name rhymes with Bessie. See, I didn't say your name. But their name rhymes with Bessie.
Whatever.
They seem
Anyway,
a little stressy.
I don't like any of you right now.
Okay, I'm back.
Just
Stuff
kidding.
in the present.
Just kidding. I did. The
takes
box
she
is
takes her
open.
salad
I
with
just haven't
lots of
actually
dressing.
opened.
Well,
Oh my gosh,
open
y'all
it.
stop. Okay, and I just want everybody to know that I literally just opened it up with a paper clip because I literally had nothing else to open it with.
So, Kessie has MacGyvered open the present.
Yes.
I wish she had shown
Oh,
us.
and she says it's okay. So it is Faith.
Oh.
Ah,
Hi, Faith.
Aunt Piff.
And Faith.
I'm gonna kill a dog.
I know. I
Okay,
don't know why
I'm
it's
gonna
crying.
cry. I'm gonna cry. Mostly because of the note, though.
Well, we won't make you read the note.
I don't know
That's
why
personal.
I'm watching the screen. It's so
I don't know why you're watching the screen either, 'cause I'm
She's
frozen
so
on your
happy.
screen. And
She's so happy. Look at how happy she is.
oh my god. Oh, these are taped up so bad though. Like, it's
Wait, read the note. What does the note say?
you want me to
Oh.
read the note? The note says, "Burn these to repel fuckboys and natural ones."
Okay.
I've had a lot of chaos in my life recently.
Yep.
Is it a box of sage?
No.
She's gonna smudge the entire house.
No, because I did flip it over and read what it is. Because it listed what it actually was on the other side of the piece of paper.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry. Is
I don't
that,
know if people can see that.
It's a little blurry. Oh,
It's a li-
okay, there you go.
is that
Who is
It
that?
is a Laura Bailey.
Ah, Candle!
And there's another one. And there's another one.
there's another one?
Who's on the other one?
This is so good. I love this so much. Oh.
Where the hell did you get those, man?
Oh.
He did a good job of taping them up, though.
Please don't teach my husband how to do that.
Oh man.
Hey, I'm excellent at wrapping things.
Oh god, yes. Oh, it's so beautiful.
Ah, Townsend! Holy shit, where did you get those?
Etsy.
Oh.
Etsy?
They're beautiful, and they've got like dice on one of the sides and stuff. Oh my god, they're so beautiful. I love them so much.
Are Laura and Towson your faves, or were they what was available, Josh?
Oh
what?
man,
I said, are Laura and Towson her faves, or were they what was available at the time?
They're her faves.
they're my
Oh.
faves. He made me tell him too because he told me he was getting me stuff, and I was like, no, I'm not going to talk to you about this. And then he forced me into telling him. So
When you say forced, it sounds like it's so involuntary. I simply told you that if you didn't tell me, I was going to buy you the whole set. So,
yeah, and I was like, oh god, okay.
So, needless to say, ladies and
So,
gentlemen, most of us are
knowing
very
Cassie,
big
that is
kissing.
Yeah, because I'm not about to let somebody spend.
Thank you.
I don't want people spending any money on me. But if you're gonna threaten to spend that much, it's like nope. Okay, I will.
Well, on that happy note, I think we can go ahead and wrap this show the heck up for the evening. Thank you guys, everyone, for showing up. Thank you, everyone who watched. We really appreciate it. This is going to be something we're going to do more often. I would like to set an expectation for the next time we do the show. I want to talk about the changes that D&D has made to the world and the way that the NPCs are now interacting in the world. And, ladies and gentlemen, Kessie is crying.
I'm not crying.
Her tears are like nourishment. We love you so much, Kessie.
Thank you.
I'm fine.
But so yes, next time we're going to go ahead and discuss the changes that D&D made to the world, how that's affected the community, and how it's affected the way people feel about the game, and the continuing controversies that Wizards has had with their situations they have with representation. But that's not on the gaming side. That's on the internal company side. So, you guys, we will let you guys know when we're going to do a show like this again. I don't want to set anything expectations because we film a lot. So if we can do it next Saturday, that'd be wonderful. But if we can't, I understand. We will go ahead and post this up as soon as we know. But thank you again, everyone, for showing up. And you guys, oh,
I'm fine. I'm totally fine.
But thank you guys all, and we wish you all a very happy weekend. We will see everyone tomorrow night for Strahd, starting at 6 p.m. Josh is going to be putting us through our paces and beating the crap out of us, both emotionally and physically. And always remember, folks, that we have 2 contests running right now, and they're both very important to us, and we hope they're important to you. If you can see in the center of the screen that those pictures scrolling through, what we're doing is we're doing 2 contests. The first contest is for our Facebook page getting to 7,000 followers. Right now, as of this moment, we're at probably 6,300, 6,400. I don't remember. Yeah, we're checking that. But we're trying to get to 7,000, and we're already almost halfway there, if not halfway there by now. What we're giving away, though, is all those minis that you see scrolling through the screen.
6378.
6378, we're almost at 6400. So all those minis are going to be given away as a one lump package to one winner when we hit 7K. And that's going to, in order to be eligible to win those miniatures, you have to have 3 things followed. You have to like our Facebook page, follow our Facebook page, and you have to share the post about the contest. It is currently pinned on the Facebook page, and I'm going to leave it on there for a couple of days, and I'm going to pin the other contest we have going. The other contest we have going is to increase our Twitch followers. Our Twitch followers, baby, could you mute, please? Thank you. Our Twitch followers are basically we're not even to 100 yet. We're angling to get to 200 followers, and so we've created a contest there where we're giving away some select minis that I got from another Kickstarter that are basically based around an adventuring party at an inn or a pub. So it's 3 models for the adventurers, and then it's a bunch of models for laying out the interior of a pub. There's even a hearth, there's a bar, there's several tables, and these are all HD minis. I'm going to use my resin printer to print them out. So all these minis are going to be printed out, and if you win, once we hit 200 followers on Twitch, we're going to give away those minis to the 200 followers on Twitch. So to do that, you need to follow us on Twitch, like and follow the Facebook page, and share the Twitch contest post from the Facebook page itself. All right? So that's pretty much it. I think we've covered everything. Does anyone have anything else they want to say?
Frumpkin already found the box.
Frumpkin already found the box? And he's in the box? Is there wrapping paper in it too?
There's a bunch of bubble wrap, and he's trying to chew on the tape, so I had to push the tape down so he doesn't chew the tape. But
he'll still chew the tape.
Don't forget to support your local game store.
Oh yes. Josh, did you see the thing about Emerald's Tavern?
Yeah, I actually went there today.
How are they doing?
Bought some food, bought some dice.
Stop.
They're actually rolling out some limited edition stuff from whenever they moved into their whenever they first came into their big location.
Mhm.
They brought their founders stuff back.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you live in Austin and you want to go support Emerald Tavern, do it now. Go buy some of their founder stuff. Go, their cottage pie is fantastic. Could probably switch it up a little bit, but
Sorry.
What is happening?
Sorry.
What is
It
happening?
was like, Jesse, mute.
That entire conversation
Sorry.
was just like it was like a demon
Yeah.
trying
But
to
yes,
come and get me.
Emerald Tavern was who we promoted on the stream. We forgot to promote someone last stream, so I'm gonna do 2 this stream. Why don't we go with Alex? Do you have a local game store that you'd like to promote?
put them on the spot. Unmute yourself.
You gotta unmute.
Thank you. Yeah, so if you're anywhere near New Braunfels, go ahead check out Blitzkrieg Games and Comics, run by a badass dude, Billy, and it's just a really good shop.
Excellent.
And the community there is great.
Gotcha. And we basically just want to make sure, because during the time of COVID, people aren't going out. And I know that a lot of people are ordering online from Amazon and stuff, and that really hurts the local businesses because they're barely surviving on the best of times. I mean, it's always, in retail, you're always, your worst sales day away from shutting down. So right now, it is incredibly important that we support local retail shops, because when this is over, we're not going to have any place to play. We're not going to have any place to go buy our local stuff or pick up the latest set of dice. So we need to make sure that we have support going to these local retailers even when COVID's on. So if they're offering curbside pickup, do that. If they're offering to do mail order, do that. Do anything you can except for ordering from Amazon. Bezos has enough money. We don't need to give him more. We need to support local people who support local communities. And for us, since we're doing 2 tonight, because we wanted to reiterate, because Emerald Tavern put out a post last week saying that they're really struggling. So we want to make sure that we reiterated to go to Emerald Tavern and make sure you support your local shops. But I want to give out some love locally here in the Fort Worth area. The Sci-Fi Factory in Keller is a freaking great store. It has gaming tables. It has everything you want for the geek gaming collector. They support RPGs, card games, war games, everything, board games. It's all there. Plus comics, and you can get a sub there. It is a great shop. And let me see where it is real quick. But it is right in Keller. It's right off Main Drag.
Yeah, so I think you were shout out, babe.
10716 North Beach Street in Fort Worth, Texas. And you guys go ahead and try and hit them up. It's a huge store too, by the way, so it's an excellent place to just go and hang out. I don't know if they're still open at this time. They were open about 3 weeks ago when I went by, requiring masks, which is wonderful. And they were doing social distancing in the shop. Like Magic players could sit across from each other at the table, but they had to leave seats empty between each other and the next Magic player. So it was really well organized. So hats off to Sci-Fi Factory. I hope you guys are doing good, and we will hope to see you guys stay open after this. All right. Does anyone have anything else they want to say other than we love you all?
Well, I kind of wanted to plug Etten Games.
Oh, you want to plug Etten? Gotcha. And Etten Games and Hobbies is in Humble, Texas. It is an incredible shop run by a really good friend of ours, and it is been a godsend to the local gaming community because they're really ethical, incredibly good business practices, and they're really concerned with the gaming community, and they do everything they can pull it. They even do things like every month that has an extra weekend, like the 5th weekend, they run what they call their garage sales, where they let customers bring their own items that they no longer want anymore, and they are allowed to sell those items in the store for store credit. So people can come in, they can buy the items from the people. Those people get store credit to use in the store, and it basically allows people to get rid of old games, things that they don't utilize anymore. I know I've gone and both bought and sold there when we lived in Houston. And David is the owner. David is a really great guy, and the shop is not the biggest, but man, it is packed. And
I've been there before. It's wonderful.
Yep. And so we're hoping, honestly, we were actually hoping before COVID hit that they were going to be moving to a bigger location, because they're really a great store. But they're off of 241. They're 241 Farm to Market 1960 Bypass Road in Humboldt, Texas. So if you can get out there and support them, they deserve it. They're a great store. Other than that, everyone, I thank you guys. I thank all my DAG folks for coming out for this. I really appreciate you guys making time on a Saturday, and I love you all, and I want to see you guys come back. If we can do it next Saturday, that'd be great. That'd be amazing. But in the meantime, we've gone way over time that we said we were going to do this for. But that's what happens when you get people talking about things they're passionate about. But I hope everyone out there stays safe. Stay home if you can. It's still a pandemic. Even if you don't like the idea, it's still a pandemic. So stay home. If you have to go out, wear a mask.
Wash your hands.
Wash your hands. Just be careful. We love you. We want to see you back here as often as we can, and we want to be able to provide you guys with the content you deserve, and we can only do that if you're still alive. So, be careful, all right?
Or buy subscribership in advance.
Oh, God! And, okay, we took it to a dark place. Okay. All right, but anyway, be careful, just remember, we love you. We want you to come back, and because we here at Dinner and a Game, we will always save you a seat at the table. So thank you guys very much. Have a good night.
Said it. Catchphrase.